In 74 minutes, 8.5 devices went dark, and the world felt it. I'm Klaus and I'm presenting on behalf of AGALIO. Together with my team, we've conducted a deep post-incident analysis of the 2024 Crowdstrike outage. But we're not here to just recount what happened. We're here to show you exactly how it happened, why current architectures allowed it, and what our 2026 strategic roadmap does to ensure it never happens again. Well, the numbers tell the story. An estimated $5.4 billion in direct losses, 8.5 million Windows devices affected. Delta Airlines alone reported a $500 million hit. Hospitals had to cancel surgeries, delay procedures, and to switch to a manual workaround. And this was not a small technical issue, it was a global business shock. And what it showed us is simple. We build systems to move fast, but not systems strong enough to fail safely. This brings us to our main point. There is a governance gap in modern security architectures. The sensor itself was treated like high-risk software, but the failure came through rapid response content, a fast-moving update layer designed to react quickly to threats. Crowdstrike's own analysis says the sensor expected 20 input fields, but the update delivered 21. That mismatch caused an out-of-bounds memory read and crashed the system. The lesson is clear. If dynamic content can affect production systems, it must be governed with the same discipline as code.
So imagine the system crashing not because of a cyber attack, but because of a data mismatch in a system. That's what happened during the CrowdStrike incident. The system was updated to handle 21 input parameters, and when the data engine tried to process the 21 parameter, it couldn't, because it could only handle 20 parameters, and this is what caused the crash, which was called the blue screen of death, which happened in the Windows kernel. So how did this get through testing? Their security check missed it because of a wildcard bug. So their validator was programmed to read any, accept anything in the 25th slot. So it cleared a broken file. So they trusted automation too much. So in short, it gave them all clear when it clearly wasn't. So this leads to a bigger issue. Safety versus speed. This happened because of speed paradox. They were moving too fast to beat hackers, aiming for 29 response time, but the culture of agency caused them to prioritize deployment speed over infrastructure stability. So the real problem wasn't just technical, it was also the process and decision making. So this shows that the impact was global. With about 18% of global endpoints, a single faculty update didn't stay local. It spread instantly worldwide. So because of the rollout was done at once, there were no containment, turning a small error into a global outrage. The key takeaway: when one system is widely dependent on, it becomes a single point of failure at scale.
Thank you, Teku. Moving on to I24 and COBIT reclassification. Before 2024, the kernel level updates like the CrowdStrike's channel file 291 were treated as standard changes, meaning they were automated, pre-approved, and deployed globally, almost with no friction. That's what made July 19th catastrophic. Going forward, these updates are classified as normal changes, meaning every deployment requires change advisory board review, a formal risk assessment, and a peer review gates. So COBIT 2019 anchors this to AP012 for managed risk and BA106 for managed IT changes, giving us an auditable governance backbone. The 4-tier kernel rollout. The second fix is structural. We eliminate the big bang global push entirely. Updates now move through the four concentric rings, which is ring 0 is an isolated sandbox, nothing customer facing. Ring 1, 0.1% of Crowdstrikes on internal systems. Ring 2 expands to early adopter customer with tight performance monitoring. Only after full telemetry validation does the Ring 3 which is the general availability trigger. So critically, there is a tripwire between ring 0 and ring 1 that must be manually cleared. The 0.5% automated circuit breaker. But canary rings are only as good as the signal watching them. That's where the circuit breaker comes in. The system continuously ingests crash telemetry across every ring in real time. If the BSOD or system crash rate crosses 0.5% in any ring, the entire global deployment pipeline is severed automatically. No human is required. And it doesn't just stop. It triggers an immediate rollback to the last known good configuration stored in the CMDB, preventing the boot loop scenario we saw in July. And lastly, on my part, I'm looking at the architectural safety and Rust migration. The longest term fix is architectural. Through Microsoft Windows Resilience Initiative, Crowdstrike is moving security logic from ring 0 kernel, which is the kernel mod, where crash means a fatal BSOD, into ring 3, which is the user mod, where crash is simply an app reset. Simultaneously, the vulnerable content interpreter is being written in Rust language that eliminates the entire class of memory safety errors, including the exact out-of-bounds read that caused the incident at compile time before the code ever ships.
Moving on to the global compliance and framework mapping. Following the Crowdstrike incident, our remediation is focused on a 4-tier canary model where updates are progressively released across controlled environments before final rollouts. This ensures to detect and contain issues early. Firstly, the shared responsibility model. The incident showed that responsibility was not clearly enforced. A single vendor update was deployed globally without sufficient staged validation or independent checks. It is important to define ownership between all parties as well as vendors to ensure accountability during incidents, removing single points of failure. Secondly, the incident shows gaps that would have been addressed by the DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act. It enables and strengthens the ICT risk management. It improves continuous monitoring as well as rapid reporting. The outage demonstrated how one point of failure cascaded across multiple systems globally. Finally, the systemic regulatory compliance. This strategy enables us to meet regulatory expectations. We are addressing this by mapping all critical dependencies, implementing stronger segmentation, and aligning with NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. We also introduced board-level metrics to track resilience across the enterprise and to prevent widespread disruption. I'll now leave this time to my colleague Rumbidzai.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Tendekai. Moving on to the transparency imperative. We all know that most companies hide behind the legal review aspect. But in this case, we say Crowdstrike did the opposite. It then published all its ugliest details, whereby there was the wildcard bug, the blind spot in testing, and the exact line of code that failed. Why? Because we believe that trust is not just built on marketing, but it's also built on receipts. And in this case, we say the most and worst case scenario turned into a filter, whereby customers that value honesty stayed. Moving on to the managing ecosystem cascades in remote recovery. Here's something no one talks about. A single vendor lock-in is a systemic risk, where we say customers are then advised to diversify across different asset classes, because if one update fails, you don't want every critical server failing the same way. A quick reminder of the 2024 USB nightmare, where thousands of devices manually rebooted, but thankfully we have Microsoft Quick Machine Recovery. Now non-booting machines from the cloud are fixed instantly and remotely. Lastly, we say there's the case of the Pittman ruling and responsibility. January 2026, Judge Pittman dismissed fraud claims against Crowdstrike, and that ruling wasn't just a shield, but rather it was a mirror, because legal defense stopped consuming millions of dollars, and the focus was then turned in the aspect of finance, and energy moved back to engineering. And the lesson learned on this accountability was that accountability isn't just a cost, but it's also a strategic asset. So in all, on these 3 slides that I've talked about, we say transparency, ecosystem thinking, and legal validation. That's how you turn like a collapse into a comeback.
Moving on to the SLA 2.0 and resilience warranty, we underwrite, our architecture. If our deployment processes causes an operational change or outage, we bear the financial burden, not the customer. And, this was done by financial indemnity, the establishment of $500 million funds. These are like resilience warranty funds, specifically reserved for tier 1 enterprise customers. And also there was, a structure called mandatory notice. This contractual introduction of mandatory 48 hours advance notice for all core updates, guaranteeing a testing window. Now, the market validation, the financial bond, the metrics for Q4, we had about $331 million net real ARR, and the total ARR increase was about 24% year over year to about 5.25 billion. The unbroken stickiness, maintained an astonishing 97% gross retention rate and a 115% net retention rate, despite the ultimate stress test. The Falcon Impact Complex, the coupled revenue from raw corporate headcount, driving at about 25% ARR, lift their flexible consumption based on enterprise and licensing. The scrutiny modes, right? The 2024 crisis forced us to, rebuild our engine in public. We transformed our greatest vulnerability into our greatest assets. And the reality is, Crowdstrike is now, the most audited, the most stress tested, the most transparent platform in cybersecurity history. Competitors who haven't suffered, a similar macro shock still operate in the same hidden infrastructure fragility we possess in 2024. The 2026 mandate, secure and scale. We stopped breaches, right? It's no longer enough. Scrutiny without stability is incompetence, and is also incomplete. We are now, building an ecosystem of resilience, shifting definitively from software vendor to foundational infrastructure partners, which is core. The final commitment is delivering the most tested, the most controlled, the most resilient cybersecurity updates in the world, falling safely in an ultimate competitive advantage. Thank you.